I get asked a lot about making terrain, so this video was a quickie to explain how to do a little pimping up of commercially purchased polystyrene terrain tiles. I've used some of these methods for years, but recently decided to focus on a few boards which are being used for 1/1200 scale naval games. I have built these to be scale agnostic, so with the addition of different assets, they can be used for any scale, as you'll see. Let's have a look at how it's done. I do the dirty work first. Here you can see the beach areas have been coated in a fine layer of builder's sand. I'll paint over that later. The cliff edges have been skimmed with a coat of filler, which dries to a contour finish and gives a realistic look when it's painted. The wash along the cliff edge and the sandy beaches is laid in with a palette knife. It's not an exact science, and the paint job will create the real effect. Compare the C effects of the right hand board here with the basic board on the left. I mean, these are fine, but they're not for me. I like to coat the land areas in loose grass flock, and I secure this with some PVA glue. Coat sections of the board in a mildly diluted solution. Use a big brush. This is not a delicate job. If you can, do the dirty stuff outdoors. You'll make less mess and don't have to breathe the fibres and dust. Do the sprinkling in sections. Have a newspaper underneath to catch the spillage and pour it back into your jar. One jar of this will go a long way. Pat it down with your hands, shake it off by turning the boards on their sides and give them a good couple of thumps on the back side. Leave it to dry for about 24 hours. Leave them flat and try and make sure the room is warm. The activities to create these boards are relatively short and simple. The key is the drying times, which extend the process over a couple of days. Right, let's turn to the sea. I use acrylic paints and mix them roughly on a palette. Use big brushes and don't be shy. This is a manual process. I like a deep, dark base because you can do a lot with that afterwards. Don't worry too much about the edges and the neatness at this step. Lots of tidying up can be done later. Look at that. What a difference. And we haven't even started yet. These boards don't need varnishing, although I usually varnish wooden boards. We're starting to get an idea of how the boards will look when finished. You can see I haven't bothered at this stage to paint right up to the cliff edges because I'm going to do these in another colour. The base mix I use here is a dark blue and a dark green mixed together about 50-50. All the gradation comes from using lighter tones and then blending them in a rather neat way with some sponges. This is another big job. This is what makes the surface of the sometimes fragile boards a little tougher. Use chocolate brown matte emulsion. Be generous. It will dry hard and tough and is then very easy to dry brush up in whatever colour you want. You can put this paint on straight from the tin or water it down a little. If you do that, it will go on with patches of green, but that's fine because I'm going to dry brush over the whole thing when it's dry. Looks alright now though, doesn't it? I've also painted the sand in the chocolate brown. It will be heavily dry brushed up to the finished tones. The board in the top right is finished and put into the shot as a control to illustrate where all this is ultimately headed. Now to simulate some shallower water near the shore. This is a royal blue and mid-green mix lightened with some Vallejo sky blue. I'm neatly blocking this up to the cliff edge. You'll notice I've already dry brushed the cliffs with a mix of chocolate brown and titanium buff. This provides just enough contrast, don't overdo it. There is no great artistry here, it's just journeyman model making. Now, this was a nice discovery when I made it. creating a mottle effect on the sea surface using a torn piece of sponge dipped into a lighter mix of the base colours. I also use this technique for blending the transitions between water depths. It works very well. Now we have a real sense of how the blending and mottling technique provides a very attractive seascape, which of course can also be used in rivers or in different colours for different locations. It's so much more interesting to look at this than a bland monocolour surface, and even if you didn't do any land pieces at all, it provides a wonderful sea to play on. The undercoated beach has had a vigorous dry brush with a golden ochre shade here. It's still too dark, but it's getting there. The control board provides a nice template for matching up. A quick look at the palette, but what we really need to see here is another little finishing technique providing more depth and richness to the seascape. Make up a very thin wash of the mid-colour you have used to mottle your ocean. Carefully run it around the entire coastal breakers area and thin it out as it gets to the deeper water. It provides another layer of perceived depth. I also use this technique when I'm basing 11200 and 12400 scale ships, which are a bit of a passion of mine. It is subtle on the board, but to my mind it adds a little bit of extra definition. Right, let's hit the beach. We're bringing the sand up to its final highlight by mixing a liberal amount of titanium buff into the gold ochre. This gives a lovely rich finish which stands up to scrutiny from near and far. Just keep highlighting it till you get it to where you want it. Back in terra firma, we're going for it. Get the garish green emulsion out. Don't panic at the shade. The chocolate brown base will pull it all back to reality and dampen the psychedelic nature of this horrible stuff. Imagine this in your lounge. You'd be climbing the walls. Slap it on. You can't really mess it up. If you do, start again in the chocolate. Once this is all complete, I mottled the land further with dollops of gold ochre, titanium, grass green and chocolate. It all blends in. I don't know why, but just trust me, it's going to be fine. Looking good. Made but not yet created. Here's the little extras on top of any tidying up you need to do. Take a flat brush and dry brush pure white over the relief areas of plaster you made the waves and wash with. It just adds that little touch of magic. So there we have it, a 4x4 terrain setup, which of course can be expanded, but as it stands, provides a fantastic playing area for various scales. The total working time on this is probably less than 1 hour per board. I finished this particular project in 3 days using only 1 hour from 7 AM to 8 AM in the morning and doing some evening work between 6 PM and 7:30. It's easy when you've had a little practice, and it's not too ambitious to be started and left incomplete. I actually built this setup for a particular English Civil War naval game that I was writing a scenario for. I will of course be able to use it for many other things. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip into terrain making League of Augsburg style. If you did, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Till the next time.